everybody, we're going to get started. Thank you for coming, and we want to respect everyone's time and get everyone out of here by 7:45 at the latest. So I'm Mike Charno. I'm Director of the Fountain Hills Drug Prevention Coalition and also on the Town Council, but just want to thank you again for coming out. It's good turnout. Apparently this side is more popular than this side, but that's okay. And just a few, couple housekeeping items. If you have questions for any of the individual speakers, just hold them to the end. We're going to reserve time for questions at the end. And everyone should have a ticket, so we're going to do the drawing at the end. So obviously you have to be present here to win. And $2,000 is going to go to some lucky winner toward college education or tech school, and some graduate of Fountain Hills High School. So we're looking forward to that excitement later on. And we've asked each speaker to kind of give a little bio if they want, but we're pretty much going to remain up here on the dais and take our turns. So with that, I'm just going to have our mayor come on up, Jenny Dickey. She's been in town forever, a little longer than me, and was on the school board for 8 years and on the council for 4, and now she's in her second term as mayor. So come on up, Mayor.
Thank you for inviting me to talk to you all today on this important meeting, and I want to thank you all for everything that you do for the youth in our community. So I'm going to talk about my middle son, Brian. I had 3 sons. They all came through here, K-12. And at senior prom time in 2002, they created a kind of a mock crash on the football field. Some of you were probably here for that. And there were helicopters and ambulances, and it was very real. So one student, they were all friends, played the drunk driver, who wasn't hurt badly. He had to perform the field sobriety test there right in front of everybody at the football field, which he failed miserably. One girl, female at the scene, was killed right then and there. So she was removed, and it was very, very effective. Had a body bag, everything zipped her up. Another classmate played the passenger in the car with Brian. So, and I was watching the whole thing unfold, which I didn't know what was going to happen with her mother. So we heard the sirens and the helicopter and everything, and they had her screaming, and they all had makeup and everything. And there was also like a running commentary, like a narrator at some sort of a nightmare TV show. So Brian, they load him in the helicopter off to the hospital, where it's announced he dies in surgery, and that the young woman with him was paralyzed. So then, again, it was with the narration. The next day at school, that week, they had the empty seats of the 2 of them, or the 3 of them actually, put flowers in them. So it was all, you could visualize it very well. So in reality, Brian is a graduate of U of A. He's actually a first responder himself. He's a captain for the Scottsdale Fire Department. And he has 3 little girls under 7. So everyone needs that chance to live their life. And all of the kids that were involved that day got that chance. And they've been able to live in all their different ways, what is now 20 years later, believe it or not. So I want you all to remember the young folks that are here, and everybody too, of course, that you mean the world to your family and to your friends, to our entire community. And I want to wish you best wishes. I know there's seniors here, but all of you for the end of your school year. Make sure you make it to the rest of your lives like all of these kids got to do. And listen carefully to all these wonderful professionals up here who are here to help you. And again, thank you for having me here, and thank you for all the work that you do.
All right, I thought I was on. You gonna push it? All right, thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to mention briefly too, we thought with prom coming up and graduation and summer, this is a kind of a critical time for our young people, and so we just thought this was great timing all around. And April is Alcohol Awareness Month as well, so it just fit in perfectly. So Next, I'm gonna move on to this gentleman to my left here, our interim superintendent, Dr. Patrick Sweeney.
Good evening, everybody. I will be brief. I just want to first thank you all for coming out. I know on a night like tonight, there's 50 other things you could be doing, and the fact that parents and students have chosen to be here says a lot about you, and it means a lot to everybody around you, so thank you for taking the time to do that. I think the biggest thing to me as we head into events like this with prom is, these are supposed to be really fun, great times. And it's supposed to be fun, great times for kids and parents to send you off and all of those things. And it just can take one little dumb mistake to turn that really fun time into a really bad tragedy. So I just encourage everybody, have the fun that you want to have, do it safely, do it wisely, be smart. So everybody can look back on this 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and just talk about what a wonderful, great night it was for everybody who was involved. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sweeney. And, the coalition's been around for over 11 years already, and this next gentleman's only been here a year. It's almost over, Mr. Hartman, but you've made it almost, so go ahead, you're on.
Thank you, sir. Chris Hartman, principal, Fountain Hills High School. Been an awesome year so far. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces, familiar young faces. Well, you're all young, but I mean high school faces. There's really, this will be my 22nd, I was thinking walking over here, this will be my 22nd prom. Been doing this a long time, and it's really the only night of the year as a parent of 2 teenagers myself, and being surrounded by them in my job that I don't sleep well. Just kind of the anticipation of making sure that phone doesn't ring and waiting until Monday morning when I can see everybody again, and like Dr. Sweeney said, celebrate a milestone weekend, high school prom and impending graduation and the celebratory time of year. We do take a proactive approach at the high school. We all of us up here certainly live a reactive portion of our jobs enough that we want to take a proactive approach at the high school through events like this. We have another assembly next Friday where we will address the students through 2 separate assemblies about making good choices on the 30th, prom night, and moving forward as we enter the graduation season. I think the theme you're going to hear over and over again, and we all know it, is it only takes one bad choice. And as much as we'd like to as parents, we certainly can't follow them everywhere, nor would they like us to. So we do our job, we hope for the best, we educate, we're proactive, and then we send them out and hope that they will make that good choice. So I thank you for being here, I thank you for spreading the word. I've already got my literature for my talking points with my boys when I get home, which they could possibly roll their eyes at, maybe not, but you all are familiar with it. I know Mom, I know Dad, I got it. But the message can't be overstated enough. So thanks for being here, thanks for supporting, thanks for making this a great place to work, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hartman, and he did mention some of the brochures, and so each family got a packet, and one of the main brochures in there is this one from SAMHSA, and it's impaired driving, talk with your kids, and that's the one that ties directly into tonight's topic. There's some other information in the packets about vaping and some other issues with counterfeit pills and that, but this one is the main one about the topic tonight. So, as you know, the town contracts with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office for our police protection out here, so we're honored to have an expert among our midst who has dealt with this topic for many years, and so Deputy Steve Graham is here. I don't know where he came from, somewhere in the valley, but I appreciate him coming up and being with us. So Deputy, you're on.
Thank you. Like everybody else said, I'm the guy in the middle. I'm the one that everybody loves to hate. Unfortunately, I'm the guy that's going to be out on the road looking for people, looking for signs and symptoms of everything. And unfortunately, people will make choices, and when they make those choices, you have good consequences and sometimes bad ones. So that's where I'm here. I was asked to. I'll give you a quick background. I've got 25 years involved with the sheriff's office, ranging from an EMT for 25 years, being a law enforcement phlebotomist to do blood draws. I'm certified as a drug recognition expert in court. I've also do a lot of other things with the sheriff's office, but because of my own experiences with family, my own brother getting 2 DUIs while I was in high school, which taught me to go down a different road than he did. I have friends and family members that have lost friends and family, 2 DUIs, 2 accidents and things like that, because somebody made a choice, and then that choice ended up being bad. So that kind of guided me where I wanted to go with my career. Because I did kind of fall into this. I started as a volunteer, and then I just perpetuated into a sworn deputy. My goal is to make sure everybody gets home safe. Whether it's I'm driving down the road, finding somebody, or I'm responding to a traffic collision, or I'm responding to a call for service at somebody's house where a family member just called in and said, my brother, he just got all angry, he's been drinking all night, and he's out on off driving down the road. Those are the calls that I want to go to, daytime or nighttime, because these types of calls for drug and alcohol impairment, they happen in broad daylight, they happen in the middle of the night, they happen on prom night. The mayor mentioned one of the years ago doing the scenario of an actual collision and fatal investigation and things like that. I would like to see that actually come back, because it does strike home pretty quickly for some people. When you're looking at somebody covered with a sheet taken off the field, it's the exact same thing when they're taken off the asphalt or pulled out of a car. So I, like everybody else said, I appreciate you, everybody coming out for this. Just to give you an idea, things that are going on in our, we have the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, also known as NHTSA. They put out some statistics, and you look at some of those statistics. In 2019, across the nation, 56% of all serious or fatal traffic collisions involved one person having at least one illegal drug on board the system. So that's roughly 10,100 people killed every single year because somebody made a choice to drive impaired. So our goal as the sheriff's office, along with every law enforcement agency in the valley, we want to get out there, we want to get people educated and talk about some of those things that do impair people. You know, everybody always thinks of alcohol. I get a DUI, it's just an alcohol impairment. It's just I'll do this, I'll do some jail time, I'll do some community service, or I'll face the judge. Things like that. But nowadays with over-the-counter medications, prescription medications, all those things, and all with the marijuana being legalized in certain situations, a lot of people are not understanding how much their impairment happens when even just having some either a vape pen or a cigarette, or even just being around other people that are using drugs. Because if people are using drugs, they use it for what reason? Typically to feel better. And when you feel better, you're more relaxed, and you can't drive like that. Because driving is a multitask thing. You have to be able to look down the road, you have to be able to start, stop, speed up, slow down, watch out for the other driver. And everybody else changing radio stations, text on their phone, and everything else. Like kids and adults are all guilty of that, including myself. But that's what we're trying to get out there and find. So to give you an idea, I was told to kind of give you an idea of what it's like when, if you haven't ever been stopped by law enforcement and investigated for a DUI or driving under the influence of anything. Typically, we're looking for all those things, the things you can't necessarily control when you're impaired. Years ago, there was another statistic was 51% of all people driving at night with no lights on are impaired. So we're looking for things like that, the simple things that you take for granted, like turning your lights on when you're driving in the dark. I'm looking for those things. I'm looking for things where they weave in the road, bounce off of curbs, run red lights, or stop at green lights and go at red lights, passing out behind the wheel. All these things can be very dangerous because, especially here in Fountain Hills, how many people walk at night or cycle early in the morning or anything like that? There's not lots of sidewalks in places. So if I'm impaired, I drove down the side of the road. I'm now in the bike lane, and I just ran somebody over. In fact, 4 years ago, I think it was, we had a collision up here. An impaired driver drove up on the sidewalk on Saguaro Road Avenue to Fountains. And I think 3 died. 3 out of the 4?
No.
4 people walking down a sidewalk got hit. 3 of them died because the driver was impaired. And they left their house to go for a walk, 4 friends. And their lives are totally different. All their friends' lives and their families' lives are all affected because somebody chose. They made that choice. And I agree with everybody else here, and I'm sure everybody that's coming here today agrees. And that's why you're here, because you don't want your son, your daughter, your family, your friend, anybody to have to go through this. So if I typically then find a reason to stop you, a violation of a state statute for any reason, and then I come up with things if I see. I've been trained in all my certifications. I have over 1,000 hours of actual classroom and hands-on training, and training that I have to keep up every year. So it gives you an idea. I spend a lot of time reading a lot of things and going to a lot of things and finding a lot of things. I've been involved in between assisting or primary, over 300 DUI and drug-related incidents. And some have been just a simple, somebody drank too much and we stopped them in time. All the way up to drawing blood for people that killed multiple people in injury accidents. So the things when I look at that, the things that you can't control in your human body, like the typical bloodshot watery eyes, having alcohol or using drugs affects your eyes. If I see that or smell the odor of alcohol, open containers, or even emissions from the driver. If I take you out of the car, and you've probably all seen it, on cops and TV shows, you see him standing on the side of the road and the guy's holding a finger up and moving it back and forth. Or I'm making him do what's called the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. Or if I'm making you do the walking turn where you see somebody walking and their hands are going up and down and they look like they're like a weeble wobble walking down the road. Those tests, it's standing on one leg, your body, I'm trying to divide your attention just like driving. So your body exhibits clues and I document those clues. And like I said, we have a standardized sheet that we use for several of those standardized tests that have been proven since 1970. It started with the Los Angeles Police Department doing things like that. If I find enough that's there that I can say that you are impaired to the slightest degree by what the statutes say. You don't have to be, the legal limit is 0.08 for alcohol, but if you're at 0.03 and you caused a crash and hurt somebody, I can articulate in court, in front of the attorneys and the judges, that you are impaired to the slightest degree. Why? Because you caused a crash, you caused injury. And if I go down that whole road, you have an exceptional amount of paperwork. A typical report for me is over 40 pages of typed up and filled out forms, which I love because I'm very detailed about stuff. And that's what I train other deputies, because being a field training officer, I want to expand my knowledge. I'm 51 years old and I've been through a lot, but I've also seen a lot doing this job. So as I go down that road to do paperwork with everybody, it might not seem like much, but every single time I put something down on a piece of paper, it's there forever. It's going to be documented, it's going to carry through the rest of your life. If I get all the way through and get a conviction, that follows you for the rest of your life. So, me doing simple paperwork, I'll do it every day. I don't know any deputies that I work with that wouldn't do all the paperwork, just to make sure that somebody doesn't get hurt, somebody gets home safe. So, the biggest thing that we have that in the processing of somebody that's under the influence is trying to, I don't just arrest somebody, take them, process them, take their blood, take their breath, and either send them off to jail or send them home and not care anymore. My goal is to make sure that they understand what's going on and that they learn. We do have some people that get in trouble when they're younger, under 18, minor, they will consume or possess alcohol or even drive. My goal at that point with those cases that I've been involved in, the guys I train, is we want to be following up with them. We want to educate them because they made a mistake. We've all made mistakes. We've all done things that we made a choice and now we had the consequences for it. And as parents, I know, because my youngest is 25 and oldest is 31. I always wanted better for them. We always want better for our kids. So if I've messed up, my brother's messed up, family's messed up, I want them to learn from it, and hopefully I can pass it on to any even kids I don't know. Because that's what we're here for. We used to, on our cars, it used to say protect and serve, and it's not always for us just about chasing people down, writing a ticket, taking somebody to jail, write a piece of paper and a report and move on to the next call. It's the serve part. And that's what part of this is. I don't mind being here. I just wish I would have been a little bit more prepared, unfortunately. But there are, back to the choices. You have to make those choices. And for all the kids in here, if you're just here because mom and dad said be here, or family said be here, don't think that that's just trying to be a parent and be hard on you. Like we mentioned that they care. If you think they don't care, you're wrong. I'll tell you that flat out because they don't want you to deal with me, the bad guy. Because like I said in the beginning, I'm the bad guy. Nobody wants to deal with me. But I would much rather have everybody hate my guts the rest of my life than to have to go and do what I've done 5 times in my career. And that's go up to a door at 3 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning or 2 in the afternoon with 2 other deputies and knock on the door and say, I need to come in and talk to you about your son or your daughter. And they know exactly what I'm there for. It's not because I just arrested you. That's easy. It's because now I have to tell them that you made a choice or your friends made a choice driving the car on prom night or Friday night football. Because what I do, that affects me and affects my family. Now I have to spread that down the road. So I had a thought. I don't know if I have anything else I could really say. The Sheriff's Office has always been committed to enforcing the laws for the state, and many times for national stuff. But this is a small community, and I'm pretty sure that half of you probably know the other half of you, or you at least know people up here. You know the principal, you know the school. You're going to know some friends that are going to get in trouble and do things. But I don't want to be meeting you. I'd rather meet you like this. I'd rather meet parents like this. I'd rather have you come by our office, knock on the door, pick up the phone, have us come by your house and talk about things, which we're more than willing to do anytime, anywhere, for a 24-hour business. The biggest thing the Sheriff's Office has pushed with the DUI impairment and enforcement of it lately in the last 10 years, we've doubled, I know we have at least doubled the amount of DUI arrests we make. Because there's more and more deputies out there that are getting training and having personal experience like I did, and they want to help. So if there's ever anybody that has a question or has a problem, needs something, needs some help with something, you can always call the Sheriff's Office, either through the town or directly, because we'll gladly help you with anything. And that goes for the kids too. If you're having somebody that's you just don't want to be with, drive with, hang out with, and never cause problems like that, either using different drugs or drinking or driving, you can always give us a call too. And we can always keep it anonymous. Thank you.
All right. All right, well, thank you, Deputy. Seemed like you were well prepared to me, so appreciate all those comments, and it's good information and very enlightening and sobering to a big degree, so thank you for that. And our next speaker is a local attorney. He's a former town councilman as well. He's been out here for many years practicing law and specializes in criminal, DUI defense, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tate Elke.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'm the guy that your parents call the day after you see Deputy Graham. When you come into my office with your parents and you have your head down, embarrassed because you probably got chewed out the night before, the whole way there, and you're probably hungover as well too. So it's not usually a good day. So when you come in to meet with me, I'll chat with you a little bit about what happened. We'll get some details. A lot of the deputies and law enforcement in other cities as well have body cameras, so we'll talk about evidence and things like that that'll come up later. So, and then we'll talk a little bit about penalties, and that's what I want to kind of touch on a little bit here tonight and what you could be facing. There's so many laws on the books, and there's being laws added every year, they're being tweaked, that it's almost impossible for someone that is not in the know or doesn't have a responsibility to know what the laws are to keep up on them. And I don't expect, well, actually, I think Dwight said that it's a $5,000 scholarship if you pass the quiz with all the numbers that I'm going to give you afterwards. Is that right, Dwight? Right. Is that right? 5,000. All right. So make sure you guys take notes on everything that I'm saying right now. It's cash as well, too. Yes. You got the money in the car, right? Yeah, just follow Dwight after. He'll take care of that. So what I want to just kind of touch on, when we talk about DUIs, and Deputy Graham had a lot of wonderful information to share, when we talk about DUIs, especially underage DUIs, you often hear about the legal limit and things of that sort. If you're a minor and you have alcohol in your system, there's no legal limit. You're driving while you have alcohol in your system. Your buddy gives you half a beer, you drink a half a beer, you drive, Deputy Graham pulls you over because you're speeding, and he smells alcohol, and you're like, oh, I just had half a beer, don't worry, I'm not impaired. He's like, doesn't matter. I'm arresting you for underage DUI. And if you're convicted of that underage DUI, you're not going to necessarily face any mandatory jail. But what's going to happen is the court, after you see the judge, and the clerk's going to notify the MPD of that underage DUI, they're going to suspend your license for 2 years. You're going to lose that license for 2 years, period. Now, the judge can, if he's feeling good that day and he's in a good mood and you deserve it, I suppose, he can grant you limited driving privileges, but you're going to have a breath testing device in your car for those 2 years. So that's an underage DUI. So there's no legal limit for you. So put that out of your head if you're under the age of 21, because there is no legal limit if you have any alcohol. It's pretty much a no tolerance type of situation for you. Even if you're underage, you can get a DUI with a blood alcohol level above 0.08. If you're convicted of that, even if you're underage, you can actually be convicted of both. You're going to face a mandatory minimum of 10 days in jail. 9 of those can be suspended if you complete alcohol counseling and screening and classes. So you've got a day in jail that you got to do. You're going to do that probably at the sheriff's jail. Other municipalities have jails as well, but I guarantee you really don't want to have to do that. If your blood alcohol level is above a 0.15, you're going to do 30 days in jail. Now, this isn't, there's a lot of variables that come into play. You can get 21 of those days suspended if you have an interlock placed in your vehicle for 12 months, which your parents probably aren't going to be too happy to pay. Plus, if you got one car and your parents are being gracious enough to get that interlock for you so that you can drive, so you can go to school or work or whatever the case may be, guess what? Mom's got to blow into that device too. And I can tell you, for that year, or however long that interlock's in your vehicle, or your parents' vehicle, you're going to be reminded every single day that they've got to get in there and blow into it. And you will too, even if you've got your own car. For a DUI, a super extreme, which is anything above a 0.20, you're looking at 45 days in jail. Now, 31 of those days can be suspended. If you have an interlock in your car, like I said, there's other variables, but you're going to be doing 14 days in jail. Now, you can't get home detention on a percentage of that. This isn't meant to be, a compendium of it completely, but this is kind of the gist of it. Now, that's just for a first offense. The penalties go up dramatically if you get a second DUI within 7 years of the date of the arrest and or the date of the arrest for the first one. So you're going to be facing at least 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, or even 180 days. Again, some of those can be suspended. You may be eligible for home detention. But these are all misdemeanor offenses. We haven't even talked about felonies. So these are all potential penalties that you can be facing just as far as jail. Now, in addition to that, you could be required to do alcohol screening and counseling. You could be required to pay, or you would be required to pay fines and fees as they're mandatory. Even if the judge, knows that you don't make a lot of money, these fines and fees are mandatory. The legislature has stated that if you're convicted of a DUI, you must pay these fines or these fees. So now DUI is not just alcohol, and I've handled, over the course of my 20-year career as an attorney, I've handled probably well over 1,500 DUI cases. And this is throughout the state of Arizona, mostly here in Maricopa County. So I've seen probably just about everything. Some of the most heart-wrenching things for me, even as a defense attorney, in helping people through the process, because once you come to me, whatever's happened has already happened. We can't undo it. You've already made the mistake, and hopefully it's just a DUI. And what I mean by that is hopefully you haven't caused an accident. Hopefully you haven't seriously physically injured somebody else. And God forbid, hopefully you haven't killed somebody else. Because if you are involved in a motor vehicle accident where you're driving, you have alcohol on board, and you are involved in a motor vehicle accident, and let's say you rear end somebody, or as a deputy, the example that he gave, you don't see that bicyclist on the road and you turn in front of them, and that person is seriously physically injured. You can be charged with aggravated assault, which, if convicted, because it's a dangerous offense, you could be facing up to 15 years in prison. First offense. First offense. And you kill the person, it's up to 21 years. That's manslaughter. And so there's really, in the grand scheme of things, the only difference between you potentially doing a day in jail, let's say you've got a .08, or maybe no jail because it's underage, or facing felony charges and going away to prison for a very long time, is if you're involved in an accident or not. And those things happen a lot. And I had a case recently as a father, he had an 18-year-old daughter. He had gotten off on a Friday afternoon. He had a really great week with his business. He was a blue-collar guy, but he owned his own business, was doing great. He stopped off for a few drinks late, 3 o'clock in the afternoon with some friends. He was driving home. He was certainly over the legal limit. He wasn't all over the road, but he failed to see a young 16-year-old girl who was checking in the mail at one of those collector boxes, those boxes where you put a bunch of people's different mail in it. And he clipped her. And he didn't kill her, but he seriously injured her. He didn't realize he had struck her. He thought his mirror had hit the collector box, so he continued on. There was no damage that he saw. He stopped briefly, and then he continued. He didn't realize he had struck her. But even under the best of circumstances, the best that we could get in that situation was 5 years. He's doing 5 years in prison right now. And he was crying during his sentencing. I think he sincerely felt bad about what happened. He has a young daughter himself, and knew what her family was going through. But in those types of situations, there's not much you can do. So you just have to be really mindful. And for all of us old guys up here, and we are all old compared to you high school students, really old. You guys have so much more available to you in the way of transportation than what we did. You have Uber, you have Lyft, you have just a whole host of different things that you can do, and of course you have your parents that you can always call. And I guarantee that your parents are going to be less angry if you get an Uber home and leave your car somewhere, even if you've been drinking, and if you drive home and you get a visit or you see Deputy Graham, or you have some serious accident, or something happens to you. It's just, in my opinion, over the course of the years, I certainly have had clients that are chronic drinkers, alcoholics, and they're out on the road driving at a .3, and you wouldn't really know it that they were impaired per se because they're alcoholics and they can hold their booze. Certainly they shouldn't be driving. But what I've observed over the years is I think that DUIs, for a large part, are a product of really poor planning. People go out to parties, they go out to meet some friends just for a couple drinks. A couple drinks turns into 2, turns into 3, turns into 4, and then of course by the time you've had that much, you're not really making the best decisions. You don't know what you're doing. And people have told me, well, I drove because I didn't want to have to go back and get my car, or I had to be in work the next day, or I had to do X, Y, and Z. I guarantee you're going to be a heck of a lot happier to take that Uber home, pay $100 or whatever it's going to be, than it is to pay for the fines and fees associated with DUIs, which is going to be a minimum of $1,800, upwards of $4,000 or $5,000. And then if you're hiring an attorney, that's additional monies, jail costs, a whole bunch of other collateral consequences that you could never predict. I mean, kind of a little side unknown fact, you get a DUI conviction in the United States, Canada won't let you come into their country. I mean, that's it. There's nothing I can do about it here, but you can't go to Canada. There are other countries like that as well, even if it's a misdemeanor. So there's a lot of things that can come up for you that you can't see because it's, you're young, you don't have perspective, and that's only something that you can get through age and experience, and we can't really expect you to completely get it. But just don't be that guy, don't be that girl who everybody's talking about after prom, who got in an accident, who killed their friend, who's now facing, a whole different life than what they were facing, or what they were anticipating 2 nights before. Because you can't undo it, you can only live with the consequences after that. So it's exceptionally, exceptionally important that you think before you do anything, talk to your parents, call your parents. Don't think you can make it home, even if you've had a drink. And like I said, if you're underage, any alcohol in your system, you're going to get hooked up. And I guarantee Deputy Graham, other officers out there, they have DUI task forces that are specifically looking for impaired drivers. They're out there. They have names, not sheriff's office, but there's some others that call themselves a wolf pack and different things like that. Or things. So they're actively out there looking for you. So if you think you can kind of drive by Braille and make your way home, driving along the thing, so you're staying in line, I see some chuckles out there. People know what I'm talking about. Or you can drive the side roads and make it home and things like that. Maybe you can. But then again, maybe you can't. And I would just submit that it's just not worth the risk. So just be smart about it. Live your lives like you plan to live them, and all the hopes and dreams and everything that you have right now. Don't make one bad decision that's going to affect you the rest of your life. Because as we heard, that's always going to be there in some form or another. So I certainly appreciate being invited to this, and as what the deputy said, you can always contact them, and my office here in town is Fountain Hills Law Firm. I always happy to chat with people, especially young people, about anything, whether it's maybe going to law school, laws, things like that. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have additional questions beyond what we covered here tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tate. Certainly a lot of information, a lot of statistics and so forth, laws. So thank you much for that. I know we had packs of coyotes out here. I didn't know we had wolf packs, but it's good to know. And and he mentioned the transportation thing too. And we, whenever a coalition has a presentation of this nature or some other, one of the tips we always try to give to parents is, hey, try to have some kind of a password or some kind of sentence that you can practice with your teenagers or whatever if they're having a party and they're not feeling comfortable or some situation and they need to be picked up. You can call and say, hey, I forgot to feed the dog or something, just some kind of code to tip you off, like, okay, I need to come and get Johnny, and he wants to get out of there. So that's always one tip we give to if you can't get an Uber or whatever. So anyway, so you can see the progression that we're going here. So the last guy you see after you meet with your attorney is the judge, and so we're fortunate tonight to have our municipal local judge, Robert Melton. He's been with the town for, gosh, I don't know how many years, but he does a great job, and we're lucky to have him. So I'm going to turn it over to Judge Melton.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Judge Melton. I've been a judge here in Fountain Hills for a number of years. I've been a judge in one form or capacity or another since 1995. I was elected as a justice of the peace in Scottsdale back in '94. So I've been around a little bit. So my goal here is to talk to you a little bit about what's a judge do. I'm the, hate to say it, but I'm like the consequence guy. You make a decision, good, bad, or indifferent, and you have to come see me. What do you expect? What could happen? Mr. Elke's gone through a lot of information as to the ranges of sentencing and everything that we go over with you. But when you come in front of a judge, basically the first time you see me, I get to tell you what you're charged with. I get to tell you some rights that are attached. From there, I get to set you for different court proceedings, what we call pretrial conferences, until such time as you either resolve the case through a plea agreement or it goes to trial. And I'm the one that gets to decide, fair trial. I get to get you the rights, make sure your rights are enforced. And I'm also the guy that will, in essence, sentence anybody who comes in front of me and is convicted based on the law. And I'm also the mean person who has to make sure that the consequences are, in fact, followed. I guess I'm like the step parent that no one really wants to have because I'm the enforcer, in essence. And it's never a good thing that if you keep coming in front of a judge, giving him an excuse after excuse, or as I like to say, if I know your name as a defendant, that's never a good thing. So traditionally, that's a traditional role of a judge. Now there's a non-traditional that I like to say too, is that I want to try to get people at times to think just a little differently than what they would normally think about a situation. In this case, I would just throw out there to the young people, what's the cost of a drink? Is it the monetary, that a couple bucks for an actual drink, or is there a lot more to it? And there is. Mr. Elke told you all the fines and fees that may be assessed. And if you look at a DUI conviction, an adult conviction in 1381 or 82, the fines, fees, jail, and counseling, you're looking at $8,000. And I don't know about many of you, but I can't, necessarily write that check, and I'm sure most of you can't either. But that's a cost of making a choice. Other costs, financial costs, can include attorney's fees. He's not cheap. He went to law school. He's a good lawyer. So he's not inexpensive, I would guess. I don't know what you charge. I have never been there. But there's other costs. Insurance. You get a DUI, insurance is going to go up, right? That's something we normally think about before we decide whether or not to take a drink or not. Or that interlock device that Mr. Elke talked about. Because if you get an interlock device on your car, anybody who gets a DUI, it's any car, if you get behind the wheel of any car, you're required to have an interlock device if required by MVD. That means if you're borrowing mom and dad's car, those things aren't cheap either. I think it's a couple $100 a month because you have to be inspected every couple months. And you have to be recertified, and you have to blow into it every time you get behind the wheel of a car, and occasionally they say blow into it now as you're driving. Well, if you're convicted of a DUI as you're borrowing mom and dad's car, I don't think mom and dad's really going to like the fact that they're blowing into the interlock to make sure they get to work. Something to think about before you decide whether you're going to take that drink. Another thing that wasn't, I know this is a DUI, and this is an impaired driving seminar, but you don't have to be driving simply possess or consume, you can get a charge for possession or consumption of alcohol. If you say, I'm 20 and I'm going to sneak into a bar, use a fake ID, guess what? That's a charge. NMB is going to suspend your driving privileges. You want, I don't know about you, but I don't think I would want my driving privilege suspended for any reason where I have to rely on someone else to get around town, or to go to an event, or go to a movie, go to a football game. I'm not sure mom and dad really want to drive you around. They're not your chauffeur. So those are costs that you really have to think about before you make that decision. If you decide that you're going to drink, that. But also, deciding not to do something is also a choice. So it's not, decide not to do something. Think about the consequences before you do it. I've done, over my career, anywhere from 150 to 200 jury trials. Most of them are DUIs. And you hear all sorts of litanies of them and stories, and a lot of them just seem to roll together. But it always struck me when we're talking about impaired driving, what does it mean to be impaired? And in the olden days, several years ago, let a show of hands, does anybody know who Otis is? Mayberry, the town drunk. Okay? You don't have to be falling down drunk to be impaired. And the prosecutors would get up there and say, this is Otis. This is the guy who's falling down drunk. We don't have to show that he was this drunk. All we have to do is show impairment, and they would tear this off and drop it in front of the jury to the slightest degree. You can be impaired and not have a reading that gets you up to an 08. You can be impaired a lot less than that. And if you're under 21, you get behind the wheel of a car. It doesn't take anything other than not the breathalyzer, but a portable PPT. Yeah, which isn't admissible in an adult or DUI, but certainly on an underage it is. Because as long as you have any alcohol in your system, any, you can be cited for an impaired driver. Now, that doesn't say that your buddies who were drinking with you can't be cited if they're in the car, because they can't. So again, alcohol is bad if you're under 21. And believe it or not, the science actually justifies the age. Because if you really go into the studies as to the development of the human brain, you're really not fully developed until you're around 21 anyway. So it makes sense that that should be the drinking age. Now, most of us up here, depending on the state you grew up in, I mean, down the drinking age was either 18, 19, some had 20, some had 21. And I always found it interesting when I was 18, I could go to Hawaii and drink, but when I was in Arizona, I couldn't. Figure that out. It's a state law, that's what it is. And when it comes to drinking, all the trials I've done, I've never had anyone say, well, I was going behind the bar and I decided to drink tonight, and I knew that if I only had 3 drinks, I'd be okay, but that 4th one, no, I knew I'd be impaired, so I'm only going to drink 3. That never happened. Usually they say, how many of you had? Well, many people say they've had to drink 2 or 3. And the science will say they had perhaps 2 or 3 times that. Because once you have a blood test, it gives a reading, and by that reading, I can generally tell how many drinks you've had. Standard drinks or whatnot, but I can tell how many you've had. Whether you want to believe they're 1 or 2. I heard the story, I only had 2 drinks, but the problem is they were drinking wine, and the waiter would come fill up their wine glass all the time, so they never know how much they had, except their glass was always full. And never in a trial, whenever they claim they've had 2 drinks, has anyone ever produced a receipt from a bar that says 2 drinks. I've always found that interesting. Why don't you produce a receipt? You know what you had, because it's not the case. So if you see me, it's never a good thing. But I'm the guy that will make sure that your rights are protected. That if it goes to trial, I'll make sure you get a fair one. But the consequences you're going to have to do, I guess is the best way to say it. And they're not the type of cases that because of what the charge is that they're going to go away. If you're under 18, they don't go away when you're 18. If you're over 18, they're going to stick around. Because an alcohol charge has to be resolved. If you don't resolve it, at one point or another, I'm going to send you a gift. If you're under 18 and you drink and drive and you don't resolve it, your 18th birthday, you're going to have a gift from me. It's called a warrant. Because you will resolve it one way or another. So I guess that's pretty much the basis of what I have to say as a judge.
All right. All right, so we do have a little bit of time left, and at this point, if you have any questions, Dwight Johnson is here. He's a longtime board member of our coalition, and he's gonna kind of take it from here. So Dwight, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I've been on the board for 12 years. My son was in 7th grade when the coalition started, and I quickly wanted to get on the board to learn as much as I could to prevent my son from making dumb decisions. And in a month, he turns 25, and he made a couple dumb decisions, even though I tried to tell him what to do for 10, 12 years. But the thing is, that's what we do as youth. And as we are in perspective as parents, and students know this too, sometimes our parents make dumb or poor decisions, no matter what the age is. So I just ask tonight that you just really reflect on this. And half the year I'm in California, and there's a school district of Carmel where I live that's similar to this district. It's just a very close-knit community. And 4 years ago, a 16-year-old girl with her best girlfriend went to a party, drank vodka, was driving home, weaved a little bit. For those who know Carmel Valley Road, it's 45-mile speed limit, just like Palisades. And weaved a little bit and hit an oncoming car of an elderly lady. And her best girlfriend in the car with her died. And the Carmel Pine Cone, like our Fountain Hills Times newspaper, just really took us to heart. And so I lived through all the trial and what happened. And this sweet little 16-year-old girl, great, straight-A student, everything's great with her, made one poor decision. And she had to go to jail for 3 years. And it was a state prison. And Mr. Elke knows what that's like, you know. These state prisons are not where you want to go. And she just got out, and now hopefully she can rebuild her life. But as they mentioned today, this doesn't go off your record. It doesn't. It stays on your record for a long time. And you just don't want that situation to happen. And parents, I'll just say this now, you really have to communicate. When I got on this 12 years ago, the key thing is even though your child says, I know mom, I know dad, every week give them a hug when they go out and say, don't make poor decisions, don't drink and drive. Because it will happen sometimes to some of our Fountain Hills students. And the other thing, parents, is me being a parent for 25 years, the students, the kids, your children are watching you. They might not say a lot. You know, they won't say, Mom and Dad, why are you drinking or why are you doing this? They are watching you. And you have 2 or 3 drinks at Phil's as a family and then you drive home, they're watching you. They're watching you at home at night. So just be careful because you are role models in their eyes. And then students, you know, I spent a lot of years in Fountain Hills trying to protect our students. And I just grieve when we have had stories of really poor decisions with drinking and driving or drug driving. And that's why the deputy is just so adamant about protecting if a poor decision is made. So just please, I hate to, this is a very serious seminar tonight. We just want to protect you. To have a fun and memorable prom, a fun and memorable graduation ceremony, and the summer parties that you're going to participate in. So that's what we ask of this. I get to do kind of the fun thing. Obviously, the drawing will be coming up, but here's a chance. I mean, all of these gentlemen are spending tonight to be with you, and as you can tell, they're experts in their field. A lot of years of experience. So if you have a question, what I would ask is just stand up and please ask it nice and loud. You can either direct it to one gentleman, or you can just ask a general question. So students, you're welcome to do that.
Parents, you're welcome to do that. So, somebody please start up. Thank you very much. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you to all of the gentlemen tonight. This is very helpful. One of the things that y'all didn't address that I would like to hear our law enforcement and our attorney address is parents that are holding parties for kids and providing alcohol to kids and or knowingly allowing kids to bring alcohol into their house to consume and drugs. What is the accountability, consequences, and responsibility for those parents that are enabling those behaviors? And what can happen to those parents as a consequence if one of those kids leaves and gets in an accident, gets in a DUI, or kills somebody?
Yes, Mr. I don't mind, it'll be very simple.
Okay.
Well, for my part of it, I can't be everywhere as a deputy. All of us can't be around doing patrol, taking other calls for service. If it goes back to this, you see something, say something. It also touches on what Mr. Elke said earlier, that, and Mr. Johnson said that the kids, all you guys are going to parties, you're gonna go to friends' houses, you're gonna go just hang out and play games. But if you see something that you don't want to be involved in, you get out of that situation. If you're at a situation where the parents are providing that stuff or bringing other alcohol or drugs in and you don't want to be there, you just leave. If, and I don't know, a single deputy or from me all the way up to our supervisors to the sheriff himself, that if you call 911 from around the corner and said, hey, there's a party, I need to get out of here, we're coming. We're gonna come over there, we're gonna pick you up, we're gonna get some information in. That's where we go to that house. And it becomes a full investigation. And if it does determine that, or we can determine that, yes, there's people there underage serving, the parents can be cited by me for contributing to the delinquency of a minor, for also providing the alcohol or any drugs or anything like that. But then they also can be held accountable for something that may happen. For example, a crash happens down the street, and we determine that person came from that party. That's going to be part of that too, which then leads into what Mr. Elke could probably cover. But if you see something, say something, give us a call. And that goes back to too, you need to ride home. If somebody calls me and I'm on shift, I'll go pick you up and give you the free Uber ride home. Because I know your parents and your friends are going to be much happier if I show up bringing you home because you made a good decision and had a good choice.
That actually reminds me of, I didn't actively represent anybody in it. I don't know if this will trigger memory with the judge. It's kind of a funny story that I heard only secondhand, but there was a high school pajama party that was going on here in town, and apparently it was the cool parents, and I think the parents bought booze and split. It was kind of that situation so that the kids could have a fun party. Well, apparently they were making a lot of noise. Neighbors called the sheriff's deputies, and they went to the door, knocked on the door. Of course, there's a house full of teenage kids, girls and boys, young men and young women in there. Nobody answered the door. Well, a few of them thought they were being clever. They were standing in the garage, and the deputies were kind of trying to get a look. They're trying to develop probable cause to see if they can get into the house in some way or another. But if all the windows and everything's shut, they really can't do too much in that situation. Try and contact the homeowner, things of that sort. So apparently they could hear some people talking in the garage, and I think some young men were kind of like, "Oh, nobody home," just trying to be funny. Well, apparently one of the deputies realized that the garage door opener was in a car parked in the driveway. So they opened the door, hit the garage door opener, the garage door goes open, and they scattered like cockroaches and quickly broke up the party. Now, interesting legal side, it was a search issue going into the car and then going to the house without warrant and stuff. So, but they broke up the party. A lot of kids got in trouble probably with their parents and maybe had to hire lawyers to get them out of that situation. But from a liability standpoint, I do personal injury as well. If you have a party at your house, whether known or unknown to you as a parent, and one of the children there get alcohol poisoning, one of the children there get inebriated, maybe they're a young lady, they get taken advantage of, or someone leaves and causes an accident, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to come after you, your insurance, and if it's a major accident, it's going to probably be bankruptcy for you, because if somebody got seriously hurt or killed, we're going to force you into bankruptcy probably. So, and that's because somebody else got hurt, somebody else got injured, and whether you knew about the party or not, I guess the question will be did you know or should you have known in that situation? So make sure your kids aren't doing things at the house. Don't think that you can just turn a blind eye and pretend that you didn't know. Because, if something really bad happens, at a minimum, you're gonna have a lot of parents to answer to. So, I hope that answers your question.
And one little point with that, for all you students, what you said before, thinking about taking that one drink, thinking about having those few friends over. You tell one friend and they tell 800 friends and they all show up at the party. Then you get in trouble for that same thing. You thought you were just having a few friends over, then somebody brings one little drink, you find them in the house, then you're all in trouble, parents are all in trouble. Because I've been to multiple calls, $1 million homes to 2-bedroom townhouses that had big parties exactly like that. And people get in a lot of trouble, and down the road it costs a lot of people.
Great question. Okay, who has another question? In the back, you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
Kind of to party tag along to that, just a couple of points I was hoping the panel could address, probably most likely the deputy and Mr. Elke. No one touched on APC for DUIs. That's something that the younger crowd might find handy to know. And then also criminal restitution and IDUI as a passenger under 15. So those are pretty obvious that might be
Sure.
beneficial.
Yeah, APC is actual physical control, and that's if it's driving or actual physical control of a motor vehicle. You don't actually have to be driving. Let's say you drive down the road, you park over at Fountain Park because you don't want to go home yet because you know your parents are still up and you smell like booze and you're trying to wait it out. And you're sitting in the car listening to music. Deputy pulls up on you and he's doing a welfare check. He sees you sitting there. He's like, "What's going on?" Like, "Oh, I'm just sitting here in the car. I'm not doing anything." Well, you could still be arrested for DUI because you're in actual physical control of the motor vehicle. You have the real capability of moving or putting the car in park or driving, and moving the vehicle. So you can still actually get a DUI even if you're not actually driving. Criminal restitution is if you cause an accident, you can be ordered by the judge to pay the victims for, let's say you hit somebody's mailbox, for example, or damage somebody else's property, even though they're not in the car, you hit their car. You can be required to pay criminal restitution to them if perhaps your insurance doesn't cover that. And then there was a third thing, I'm forgetting it, ag DUI, kid in the car, that's right. This would be if you are driving a motor vehicle and you have anyone 15 years of age or younger in the car, you can get cited with aggravated DUI, which is a class 6 felony. And you can still face similar penalties to what I was talking about earlier for the misdemeanors. But there's more serious ramifications from a long-term standpoint because that is a class 6 felony, and that can follow you for the rest of your life, much like everything else. And then if you get 3 DUIs within 7 years, or if you get DUI while your license is suspended, that's also called an aggravated DUI. If convicted, you do 4 months in prison.
And along with that, on the aggravated DUI portion, to the students, to see something, say something. I have 3 cases in this last 3 or 4 weeks. I'm doing what we call long form charges. I'm submitting it to the county attorney's office. I have 3 adults that are all facing multiple counts of aggravated DUI because they were impaired. All 3 were under the influence of alcohol, of the legal limit, got involved in traffic accidents with their children in the car. If one of them, the 13-year-old, if he would have spoke up, and he said during an interview at the scene, if he would have spoke up, my mom wouldn't have driven us to school today. She got a minor fender bent a wheel well and a bumper cover in a neighborhood, but now she's facing probably in the end 7 years because she got a DUI on her own 6 years before. So if you have a mom and dad, this goes to you guys too. You make the choices, and what we said earlier, the kids follow your lead. So if you guys are in the car and mom and dad's been drinking, or a family member or somebody else, just say something, get out of the car, try to do what you can, because the aggravated DUIs will come down, and they're actually becoming more and more popular because people are getting them over and over because we're out there catching more and more people.
Okay, time for one more question. Students, someone ask a question. Be bold, your principal's here.
No pressure.
Yeah,
Yeah, no peer pressure.
or parents, whatever. We have one more question and then we'll do the drawing.
One more question or we won't do the drawing.
Or we, yeah, that's better. You won't give Tate's money either. Okay, real quick, we have a couple minutes, any last thoughts or comments that you wanted to say you hadn't said, or no, I think you covered it really well.
I would imagine there's probably ramifications if somebody gets cited, if the school's notified, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I think like a lot of us, you think back on your career, what you've seen and what's happened. So, prom, if you're a senior at prom and you get an alcohol citation, whether you have the credits or not, you could lose the ability to walk at graduation. From a school standpoint, and these are things that I've seen in my career, not here, but we've had students come to school intoxicated, and our next question is, well, how did you get here? And we found out they drove, and that turns into a DUI as well. So these gentlemen talked about life and life ramifications and how it never goes away. It's a little more limited for us as a school because you have limited time here. But I think the important thing to remember, and these are things that I've seen, we're talking about extreme cases, life loss, prison, things like that. You could also jeopardize, you could be suspended, you could be expelled, you could be asked to do alternative education for a year. And I would say relatively, those things are certainly minor compared to the consequences these gentlemen are talking about, so I'm not comparing them per se. But if we're talking about just your school status and high school career, athletic status, things like that, extracurricular status, these things can have pretty serious implications on school.
Mr. Harper, in addition for our seniors, it's my understanding they can also lose their acceptance to college and the whole scholarships too.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty broad, that's pretty broad. I've seen that happen. I would submit that it's certainly dependent upon what scholarship it is and what the parameters and qualifications are for that scholarship. I have seen kids in my career lose military academy appointments, lose recommendations from their congressman or senator, and lose athletic scholarships as well. So that's a little bit beyond my realm of I don't have that kind of decision making. That's not up to me, but those are certainly things that I've seen happen, which I guess would fall into the category of affecting your adult life beyond high school. So there's a variety of things that can happen when you come to school under the influence of alcohol, and none of them are good. So just remember that anything you have going for you, scholastically, athletically, college, whatever, walking at graduation, could be in jeopardy.
Okay, thank you.
When the coalition first started, you used to have text-a-tip.
Yes.
Now that has gone away, correct? And it's
Right,
something else like it.
Yeah, we have P3, Sean, it's called P3. It hasn't, we've had more complications with it, so we haven't marketed as a coalition as strongly as text-a-tip. In fact, text-a-tip is still on one of our school buses. It bothers me every day I see it, We haven't got it off there yet, but very good point. It's called P3. There is a system MCSO has on tips, and how that works, but it's kind of complex. Yeah. So you're right, John, okay. Finally, the good news too, and we'll send something out district-wide in the next couple of days, but we did